Good morning, good evening, good everything in between. I'm your host, Levi, and this is episode number 2 of Creatures of Lore. I've been keeping myself pretty busy this week, working on this episode and occupying my time with stuff around the house. I've had this entire week off. I've been trying to weatherproof the back porch. We were fostering a cat for Felicia's parents, and we took in their other cat. And so we kind of need a little bit more room for them to roam around. And I've been trying to weatherproof the back porch so we can keep the back porch open and a litter box out there so we don't have to keep a litter box up in the bathroom anymore. Also, I play a lot of video games. There was a game that I play called Deep Rock Galactic. You play as dwarves that mine asteroids and stuff. Apparently there was a update for that, and I've been wanting to get on and play that, but I haven't had a chance. When I'm sitting down taking a break, I'll play this new card game that I discovered on my phone for a little bit. I'll play a few games of it. Marvel Snap. I, of course, I'm a big fan of Venom and Carnage and all that. So I saw they had symbiote cards, and I've got to try to unlock all of them. So I have them because that Venom is my all-time favorite Spider-Man villain. And speaking of Marvel, this weekend Black Panther comes out. I'm hoping that me and Felicia can get a chance to go see that before we get any spoilers. And let's see. Dungeon of the Mad Mage, Dungeons and Dragons. My friends and I, we just completed a big part in that. My character for that was actually being mind controlled for a majority of the last few sessions by an aboleth, and so we ended up fighting the aboleth, and I got to turn on my friends for a little bit there until the aboleth was destroyed. So that was a fun thing to handle in Dungeons and Dragons. And another thing I've been doing was getting stuff together, rounded up for deer hunting this upcoming gun season. I've been hoping to go up north and shoot the gun, get the rifle all sighted in, but I haven't had a chance yet. I found a few buck calls, and I've been making weird noises with those, entertaining our 1-year-old. Well, she's 11 and a half months. She'll be one in a couple more weeks. Speaking of weird noises, this is an article that I came across on Phantoms and Monsters, the website by Lon Strickler. The title is Unknown Predator Attacks and Ravages Wild Mustangs in Alberta, Canada. Apparently, this person recorded some audio. He was awoken in the middle of the night by these weird sounds, and he went out the next morning, didn't want to go out at night. Obviously, I wouldn't want to go out if I'm hearing these weird sounds. That's kind of creepy. Uh, he went out the next morning, and he he found horses that were ripped apart. I think one of them was ripped in half. Uh, I don't know what can do something like that. I don't know, but I'll link the link to that website in the show notes. You can check that out. And who knows? Maybe it was the culprit of what we're going to be covering today, the Dogman. And without further ado, let's get into it. Sightings of mysterious canids have been reported all over the world as far back as the 1700s. Some of these sightings can be classified as a case of misidentification, but there's always a possibility that there's truth to some of these stories. Growing up, I always heard stories of werewolves in fiction, but never as a real world sighting. They were always a fantastical piece of fantasy to me, and it never crossed my mind that anyone would see something so impossible in the real world. Until I heard about a local creature known as the Beast of Bray Road on an episode of History Channel's Monster Quest. I became intrigued by this mysterious beast. What did people see in the Elkhorn, Wisconsin area? Was it a far roaming black bear with mange, or was it something more sinister? Let's take a look at a few noteworthy entries into the Dogman mystery throughout the history of this mysterious world we live on. Let's start out with a trip to Gévaudan, France. The year is 1764. It's a hot summer morning near the end of June, the 30th to be exact. 14-year-old Jeanne Boulet is tending to her family's flock of sheep, making sure nothing harmed them or none of them got into any trouble. During this time, the area had an abundance of rabid wolves roaming that would threaten livestock and occasionally people. As the sun rose higher in the sky, the day grew warmer, and Jeanne needed to sit and have a rest. She found a spot near a small grove of trees to sit and watch the sheep. As she sat, she reflected on rumors, family affairs, and anything else a 14-year-old would daydream about at the time. As she sat in the shade, there was a rustling in the leaves within the grove of trees. Alert, she jumped to her feet. The first thought in her mind was the recent wolf attack on a young girl a few months prior while tending to cattle. The young girl was only able to escape with her life when the herd fought back to save her. The rustling became louder, and whatever was moving in the grove was getting closer to her. Before she knew it, she was on the ground, a ferocious beast on top of her, snarling in her face. Unlike the attack of the young girl a few months prior, the herd of sheep wasn't going to come to Jeanne's aid. They instead fled in panic as Jeanne Boulet became the first of over 100 fatal attacks by a beast described as being like a wolf, but not a wolf. After the death of Jeanne Boulet, the attacks became more frequent. The beast would attack men, women, and children indiscriminately, leaving partially eaten bodies for others to find. The attacks became so frequent that it was speculation there were multiple beasts roaming the countryside. The attacks led King Louis XV to place a bounty on the beast's head. This led hunters to search high and low for the creature, trying to earn the reward. October 8th, 1764. A child was found slain by the beast, which then fled. Local hunters followed tracks toward the Chateau de la Baume, where they startled the beast as it stalked its next victim. The hunters were able to chase the beast down as it fled into the woods on the castle property. Ready for revenge on the creature, they managed to push it into an open area within the forest and unloaded their muskets into the creature. As the smoke cleared, the beast of Gévaudan lay on the ground, seemingly lifeless. The hunters, putting their guard down, approached it to claim their trophy, believing all the danger to be over. The canine rose from the ground and took off as if nothing had caused it any harm at all. That kind of reminds me of the story from Skinwalker Ranch, where a the one of the previous owners claimed there was a wolf-like creature that approached them while they were outside, and it didn't cause them any harm or anything. But once it kind of got used to them being there, it went over to the pasture and grabbed a calf by the neck and tried dragging it out of the out of the pasture, and that's when the farmer got his gun, shot at it multiple times point blank, and he knows he hit it. There's no way he could have missed it with how close he was. And the wolf-like creature just kind of looked at the guy like nothing happened and walked away. January 12th, 1765. 10-year-old Jacques Portefeuille, sorry if I mispronounced the name, I'm not French, and 7 friends were having fun playing in the snow. The beast got the jump on the group of children, hoping for an easy meal, but was met with resistance. The boy and his friends were able to scare the beast off with sticks and rocks. It was after this attack that the king's courts had enough and sent royal hunters to find and kill the beast. Attacks continued throughout the year until finally, on September 20th, 1765, the beast was believed to have been slain by Francois Antoine and his nephew. They were awarded the bounty and had the beast stuffed for the king. The attacks stopped and everyone was worry-free. Wasn't until December that the attacks started back up again. The courts, not wanting to cause any panic, disregarded the attacks and didn't view them as a big threat since they believed the actual beast had been slain by Francois. After a surge of attacks in June of 1767, a local noble named Marquis d'Apcher decided to take matters into his own hands and organized a hunt to stop the creature once and for all. It wasn't until June 19th that Jean Chastel ended up slaying the beast in the hills of Mount Monche. The attacks finally stopped and an autopsy was performed on the creature. During the autopsy, human remains were discovered, and those who saw the creature claimed it to have non-wolf-like characteristics. Some of the most noteworthy features of the beast are as follows: reddish-gray coat, a panther-like tail, the head and legs had short hair the color of a deer, a black stripe down its back, and talons on its feet. Now, it is a theory that this creature was in fact a dogman due to the size it had been reported as being, but in no cases that I could find did it ever go from 4 legs to 2 legs. But Dogman is known to walk both ways. It is also noteworthy that the area was ripe with rabid wolves at the time, so it could have just been a mutated wolf of some kind. That being said, if this place was abundant with wolves, wouldn't you think that with it being seen over 100 times, it would have been identified as one? What was this thing? Was it a precursor to a dogman? Was it a prehistoric canine? Was it just a weird wolf? That's something we may never truly know for sure. Racine, Wisconsin, 1936. Mark Shackleman arrived at the St. Coletta convent for his normal shift watching over the grounds overnight. One night, while making his rounds, everything seemed normal. It was a cool night, no troublemakers could be seen. Mark began whistling a tune to himself to break the long silence of the night. As he strolled the grounds, he began to smell something. He described the scent as that of rotten meat. Curious, he followed his nose, and the scent became stronger and stronger. He approached an area where there was an old Native American burial mound and witnessed something otherworldly. Kneeling atop the mound was a large, black-furred bipedal canid. The foul-smelling creature didn't seem to notice the night watchman yet, and was focused on digging at the mound with its massive clawed hands. Not believing his eyes and wanting to investigate further, he began to slowly approach the creature. This had to be a trick. It's just some kids playing a prank, he thought to himself. As he approached, the creature seemed to take notice of him. It stopped clawing at the mound, stood up, and stared at Mark. Mark paused as the beast took note of him, and he clicked his flashlight on to get a better look. As soon as the light clicked on, the creature pivots away and takes off into the night, disappearing into the darkness. The next morning, Mark decided to walk back out there in the daytime to find any evidence of the creature. He ended up finding footprints and claw marks in the spot where the beast was witnessed. In awe and disbelief of what he saw, he said nothing to anyone, still unsure himself if he had seen what he had seen. The following evening, Mark arrived at the convent for a second night shift patrolling the grounds. He made his rounds, made sure things were locked, kept an eye out for intruders, and sat down to eat a snack. About halfway through the snack, he began to smell the rotten meat scent again. Mark picked up his flashlight and made his way to the mound. To his surprise, the beast was back. This time it seemed to sense Mark immediately, stood up at about 6 foot tall, and snarled at him. Before taking off, though, the creature actually spoke one word, or more like a name, Gedara, and then it ran off into the night. February 20th, 2020, a more recent one. A news report about a 13-year-old boy named Corey Godsey was killed in a reported canine attack on the mountainside in Knott County, Kentucky. Officials reported that an autopsy confirmed the attack was consistent with that of a wild animal, but they couldn't identify what animal was the culprit. Wolves, bears, and mountain lions all have quite distinctive bite and paw marks from each other, so it seems odd that they'd be unable to feel confident enough to identify a certain animal as the attacker. It wasn't until August 12th that it was confirmed to have been a pack of wild dogs living in a mine nearby. This still just doesn't sit right with a lot of Dogman believers due to the fact that it took qualified professionals so long to identify the culprit as being a pack of wild dogs, when there would have been ample evidence with the body. The report claims it had rained before the body was discovered, so there should have been plenty of tracks in the mud, but at the same time, if the attack happened in the rain, it could have washed a lot of evidence down the mountainside. Either way, it still is a mystery because another report I read claims it's still an ongoing investigation today. Now, if the attack on the 13-year-old Corey Godsey was being covered up by the DNR or the government officials, it wouldn't be the first reported Dogman cover up, which will bring me to my next story from the land between the lakes. Now, on to a different type of story that involves government cover ups and the Dogman. So, the area of land between the lakes, it's a massive park and it stretches from Kentucky to Tennessee. It's supposedly home to a deadly dogman known as the Beast of LBL. The area was settled by mostly French trappers, and even then, reports of the mysterious half man, half wolf creature were common. There is a reported attack of a family camping in the LBL that I have been unable to find any official documentation of. Many people throughout the Dogman community believe that the attack was covered up by the government to not cause panic, or maybe something else entirely. You can reportedly find concrete bunkers in areas within the park that were believed to have been used by the military to hunt or contain the creatures. Now, I've gone digging pretty hard trying to come up with anything to back up the claim of the family that was allegedly killed, uh, but I've come up with zero evidence, and so have a lot of other researchers. Um, I personally believe it's just a fictitious story, but it is still a Dogman story, so I'm going to share it, whether it's true or not. The family of four were reportedly arriving in their camper van early to get a good campsite before the tourist rush. They were reportedly hearing noises outside of their camper the first night that they stayed there, so the father went out to investigate. And that was his first mistake. He became the first victim. The father was reportedly found with four massive claw marks across his back and a smaller one that appeared to be a thumb. The rest of the family was also found deceased inside the camper, and one victim was found in a tree. The camper had claw marks all over the walls, and the investigators just assumed it was from a slashing knife, but I don't know how just like a normal knife could cut through a camper wall. I mean, it could make a mark, but not entirely through it. Anyways, the mother reportedly had a clump of black fur in her hand that she ripped from the dogman. The officers were reportedly pushed out of the investigation by an unknown government agency that took over. And that's pretty much the gist of the story. Now, looking for interesting comments on the story and stuff, I decided I'm going to scroll through Reddit and see what other people have to say. So, I found quite a few comments on that. The first from user pshell360 who wrote, "I'm 38 and my eldest brother is 60. He and his wife are visiting from West Virginia. They just moved there, and before that, we lived outside Hopkinsville, Kentucky." One of my favorite cryptid stories is there, the goblins. About 45 minutes from LBL. He asked my older sister if she remembers about a family that got murdered over at a campground in the LBL in the early 80s, because he was 20 when he remembers driving over the bridge and looking down at the campground and seeing every bit of 20 to 30 police cars and crime scene tape. Now, I'm going to note I I'm not from the area. I don't know the area. I've only seen videos of investigators going there and stuff, and to my knowledge, I don't recall ever seeing a bridge anywhere that goes over the park, but I could be wrong. I'm not from the area. If you want to correct me on that, let me know. I do plan on going down there eventually, checking out the land between the lakes. My sister just moved down to Tennessee, so hopefully I can get down there. Back to what the user wrote. He recalled almost stopping because he'd never seen so many police and other cars for any incident in that small of a campground. Today they drove over that bridge and he was showing his wife where he saw all the police at. Intrigued, his wife wanted to read about it and couldn't find anything but about two girls that went missing. He insisted that that was not it and it was a family murdered at the small campground. When I found this article, I was in shock because he even recalled seeing the army vehicles as well. It's kind of interesting. When I read this to him, he said that it was the story he was talking about, only he didn't know it was a creature that had been to blame. He just thought it had never been solved. Apparently, he stopped nearby to get gas, and people at the store were talking about it just happening that morning. So there's another perspective on the story. Someone claims that they were driving by the campsite when the police officers were investigating, and they saw military. Now, this next one is something that I have not heard about in any Dogman reported incidents, which I find pretty this is pretty cool. User Hutch K18 writes, DNR had a special cryptid unit to resolve this situation. Two guys from the unit went deep into the woods where they followed a very specific protocol on how to make contact with the Dogmen. So there's more than one. Once contact was made and they presented the evidence of what had transpired to the Alpha, they left and waited for confirmation that the problem K9 had been dealt with. After another 3 days, they awoke to three severed dogman claws next to the campsite. This was proof that the offending dogman had been dealt with. Apparently, dogmen don't want to interact with us any more than we'd want to interact with them. Understandable. If I was a creature of the woods, I wouldn't want to interact with any humans. So, this is how incidents like this are dealt with. If they just start picking off campers and such, they know their time here would be short, so they tend to keep their pack in line. Offenders are dealt with internally. Now, like I said, that's an interesting one I've never heard, but it's fun to think that a government unit has a special division that deals with cryptids and other mysterious creatures. It sounds like the start of a good movie. And then there's this user creepy thing seeker. He had a differing point of view on the government cover up conspiracy. He writes this: I was an Army Ranger for 6 years. I had a TS clearance for a while. I don't know what that is. I'm going to assume it's top secret clearance. Cover ups, especially involving American civilian deaths, are very, very quick to leak. Media and military still have to operate within a framework of certification and investigation. These always leak. Truths are omitted. But we always kind of know. Even the UFO files are getting leaked, sometimes completely redacted. But because of the process, the certification process, approvals, doctors, people pulling guard on mortuaries, things always leak. Always. Except, oddly enough, anything official saying a family died there. Did the government shut up the grandparents, the cousins, the father's coworkers? All have been silenced. Bull. It's a bull story. I've I've been part of a few cover-ups. They're stupid and never work. All cover-ups on the basis of temporary secretive nature. Oh, all cover-ups work on the basis of temporary secretive nature. Sorry. It still gets recorded and stored somewhere. Government operating in LBL would be pretty big news. There would be people who remember seeing military. There are none. LBL has cryptids for sure. Too many people have seen them, but a family killed? Complete bull. As much as I love the idea that the DNR has a special cryptid unit that resolves situations like this within the cryptid community, I would love to think that there's a man out there that's best friends with Bigfoot and he goes and deals with him whenever someone sees him. And he just goes up to Bigfoot. He's like, "Hey, man, you can't be doing this. You're gonna freak some people out." And Bigfoot's like, "Yeah, okay, dude, I'll stop." That would be cool. I would love to work for the DNR in that cryptid unit. That would be pretty cool. But I think Creepy Thing Seeker does have a point. It would be kind of a hard thing to cover up something this massive. But he does bring up the point that he does believe there are cryptids in LBL. I believe there are cryptids in LBL. I believe there's something out there. Someone seeing something. Is it Bigfoot? Is it Dogman? What is it? Now, here's another article I found from the Charlotte Observer from February 22nd, 2019. It's another mysterious animal attack. North Carolina teacher named Brenda Hamilton, 77 years old. She was reportedly found attacked by a wild animal, and the investigators took some DNA samples, but they claimed that the DNA didn't match any animals indigenous to the area, but then they later corrected that and said it was canine DNA. So which is it? Is it an unknown animal not from the area, or is it canine DNA? That's a little I get people make errors, but I don't know. Sometimes you wonder. So that's another victim to a mysterious animal attack that is also still under investigation, and that's from 2019. I haven't found any updated information on that, if they've found any animals or what. Um, at the bottom of the article, they have a picture, a trail cam photo of a black bear. I'm not sure what it has to do with the article, but that's that. Now, as I wrap this episode up, I would like to share a video that I found. It was originally posted to YouTube by NVTV, and it was shared on Lon Strickler's site, Phantoms and Monsters. It claims to be a video of a dog man stalking through the bushes. I'll share the link to that in the show notes. It's kinda difficult to debunk not knowing where this was taken, the sizes of the surroundings, and obviously the blurry, shaking camera, but to me, the head looks a little off. It looks almost like maybe someone used deep fake technology to put a canine face on the video of a gorilla, which would be pretty impressive. If it's not that, it also just looks kinda stiff, like the mouth is just staying open, hanging open, not moving. It looks like a mask. But I want you to let me know what you think about that video. It'll be linked in the show notes, and, all of the other sources that I used will also be linked in the show notes. If you would like to check those out, maybe look into some more Dogman stuff. I just recently also set up a Facebook page. It's called Creatures of Lore. Feel free to like and follow if you like the podcast so far. Let me know what you like, what you don't like. Um, Follow that for updates. You can also send me stuff there if you would like to share your own experiences with the weird and unnatural. If you can't reach me there, you can also email me at creaturesoflore@outlook.com. I will put that email in the show notes as well. You can share your stories with me. Maybe you'll hear it in one of the upcoming episodes. I would like to get a segment in each episode where I share listener stories. I always love hearing your stories. I love hearing everyone's stories, whether it be true or not. Maybe I'll do like a creepypasta episode where I'll go on creepypasta and find some cool stuff to share. But yeah, or maybe I'll do a creepypasta competition where you guys can write in creepypasta stories, and I'll share them, and I'll pick my favorite one. But that is for another time. Those are just some ideas I'm throwing out, maybe. If you get a chance, I am on Apple Podcast and um, Anchor, as well as Spotify. If you like the podcast, if you're enjoying it, please leave a 5-star review so that we can get the word out. More people listening, more people sending me stuff. That means more content. Um, thank you all for listening, and until next time, you guys have a spooky night.